This one's probably going to be, I would say, a little bit different to how we've done some podcasts. It's just going to be us two chatting about a previous experience that you've had.
Yeah, so I think the disclaimer on this one is that I do talk about child loss. You know, I recognise that these things may be triggering for some people, and I guess I just want everyone to know who's listening to this that I've actually done a lot of work with a couple of different psychologists, and I also have the blessing of my wife to talk about our experience, I guess, with our journey with pregnancy. And I understand, you know, people who are pregnant or are trying to get pregnant or have been in this situation where they have pregnancy haven't gone to term, that some of these conversations could be triggering. However, I feel that as men, we don't talk about this stuff a lot enough. I think, generally speaking, we probably don't talk about this enough.
Yeah.
And this is my story. And, you know, I might cry. I do get quite emotional when I do talk about this, but I guess I just want everybody to know that I am in a good place.
And you make a good point knowing your story before we get to it. And I've written down here how this relates to building. I think you summed it up when you said that pretty much men don't talk about it, and our industry is predominantly men. And while we're not talking about a membrane or a window or building science, say, this still is just important as our industry. And I think that you're definitely a leader in this industry. So to be able to get this stuff out there and say it's okay and you can continue on, I think it's really important. So Hamish, tell me about your story. You start where you want to start.
So in about 2019, the start of 2019, we got pregnant. Now we already had Darcy. Darcy was, I think, 2.5 years old, and you know, it seemed like the right time for us to have a baby. We had a miscarriage before we got pregnant, the second time, and there was some things that weren't quite feeling right for Lucy when she was pregnant. She'd obviously been pregnant before, and she's like, "Oh, something just doesn't feel quite right." And you know, I guess I was just expecting, you know, that when she went in for a checkup that, you know, we'd had another miscarriage. And I distinctly remember sitting in the IGA car park and I was staring at the bakery. All of this is crystal clear in my head. And I remember Lucy saying, "There's 2 heartbeats." And for a second, I'm like, "What do you mean there's 2 heartbeats?" Like, I just, you know, you don't expect that to happen. And as it turned out, we were pregnant with twins. And this was at about 7 or 8 weeks. So at that stage, you know, they both had their own sac. That in itself was like a massive thing. It's like, holy shit, you know, we've got 1, we're about to have 3. And like, for me, as the problem solver that I am, like, my brain's going every different direction of, oh, we've got to get a new car. Is the house going to be big enough? We've got to get an extension. And I remember at the time, Sven from Maxwell had started the design of our home.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Mate, you better hurry up because shit's about to get real." So
just where you're at, are you with your business at that point? Where are you at? Like, what does your business look like at that point?
So I think we've got like 4 or 5 people working in the business. We had an admin staff, we had an office. We probably had 3 projects on the go at that moment. Yeah. So, you know, kind of starting that trajectory of building the business, and we'd just literally switch the business to, you know, focusing on high performance and passive house. So like lots and lots going on at that particular time.
And this is pre-COVID too?
Pre-COVID.
So, and did you say 2019?
2019.
So everything was about to just like, the whole world is about to be thrown on its head, not just this, but also that time is COVID, your business is about to explode.
And maybe I'll tell the story first, but COVID was actually an interesting time and I think almost a blessing in some ways for us. We were pregnant with twins, and you know, I could get a new car, I got to start looking at cars and all that kind of stuff. And then I think at about 15 weeks, Luce was starting to feel a bit funny.
Yeah.
And no one really knew what was happening. Like, they were testing, measuring the fluid inside the sacs and all that kind of stuff. And then I think at about 16 weeks or 17 weeks, Lucy had some pain. So we actually ended up going into the ER, like the emergency room.
Yeah.
And I remember, again, all of these moments for me are like so crystal clear, like as if they just happened. Excuse me, guys, we're about to get a little bit, gory, but, they actually do a swab and they test for amniotic fluid.
Yeah.
And, it's not something that we'd thought about.
Yeah.
And obviously amniotic fluid is what sits inside the...
It kind of keeps them floating.
Yeah. It's what's inside the sac,
Protects
right?
the baby, I think.
So they test for that to see if there's a leak.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Did doctors or anything seem concerned at the time, or is it kind of feeling you? Just
We had an
checkup?
ultrasound and everything seemed all right. And they go, look, we're just going to do this check. And I remember Lucy and I were having a chat about something random, and then the nurse came in and sort of dropped the news that we've found amniotic fluid, and your heart just sinks, like just that.
Now what? Unknown.
And we'd both sort of gone through this mental transition of, our life is going to drastically change. And, at that time when you were having another two boys, and we'd started even thinking about going to Costa Rica and taking the boys to go for 3 or 4 months and, hang out on the beach and whatever. These are all the things that you kind of gee yourself up for. Maybe it's a way of sort of getting through it and seeing positives in it. And obviously, twins was incredibly positive after I kind of got over that initial shock.
Did you know at that point that was a bad thing? Or did you what's that mean?
We were told, Lucy knew straight away.
Yeah, okay.
And then she explained to me. Yeah. And then it was like, fuck, what does all this mean?
And how many weeks were you at this time?
15 or 16
Okay.
weeks. Yep. We ended up going home that night because they couldn't do anything. We went in for more ultrasounds and they were measuring the fluid inside, and both sacs had enough fluid. Like, it wasn't abnormal.
Yeah, okay.
So nothing was abnormal.
There's just a leak somewhere.
It was a leak.
Yeah.
We went through this dance for about a month.
And that's scary.
Like, we didn't know what was going on. Like, test every week. Lucy was getting constant blood tests. She was, because what they do is they test for infection.
Yeah.
So constantly getting her bloods checked. And like, this is obviously incredibly stressful because at any time you don't know.
Every swab is like, is this good? Is this bad?
Well,
it's just day by day.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing because like they kept measuring the fluid and that was because fluid rejuvenates, right? And we were told that babies are viable at 26 weeks.
Yeah, okay.
And quite often twins are born early.
Yeah.
So we're just like, we got to make it to 26 weeks. We're going to do this.
So it's 9 weeks. You're looking, how do we get there?
We're going to do this, right?
Yeah.
And I think about 18 or 19 weeks, everything was still looking okay. And everyone was like, look, we don't know what's going to happen here. And we actually ended up going into the doctor's one Friday and there was another scan. And I remember, sorry, I wasn't there, Lucy was there. And I remember getting a phone call saying, so Zach and Seb, so Zach's amniotic fluid sac had drastically decreased.
Yeah, okay.
So obviously we're seeing a loss of fluid in that.
Yeah, and something has to happen.
Yeah, so we both went into the hospital. I left work and went in and met Lucy in the hospital, and we were essentially we're faced with this is 19 weeks and 5 or 6 days or something at this point in time. So
and 20 weeks is classified as stillborn. 20 weeks before is miscarriage.
So anything before 20 weeks, and I'm going to touch on this too because everyone's responds to these things differently. Someone could have a horrible experience and lose a child at 3 weeks and have an incredibly terrible response to that. And I will tell our story as we go along of when we lost the twins, because unfortunately, that's what happened with us. I will sort of, break that story now. So we were actually faced with, our options were we could terminate one child and then have the opportunity for the other one to be okay.
Yeah.
So we went home with that on that Friday.
And with that question, were they giving you a option of it will probably terminate itself? Because doctors are very matter of fact. They're all about the risk.
So just a massive shout out. Like we had incredible doctors throughout this whole journey, and in a really shitty situation, like the care that we got was incredible. Yeah. So basically, they're like, this twin won't survive. So your options are like he might just stay there.
Yeah.
The problem is if he keeps growing and then your waters break, then you've got a much higher risk of infection, and you've got a greater chance of the other one coming out at the same time.
Yeah.
So we went home with that decision that we were going to make over the weekend, because look, all these things, right, these are so unpredictable. You never know what's going to happen in this situation, and that's what we kept getting told. We're like, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen. Every case is different.
Yeah.
Heavy conversations to have over that weekend. I think we'd almost landed on, like, I landed on it really quickly.
Yeah.
Like, I know what I'd want. Mine's better than none.
Yeah. And you've also got Lucy to worry about too.
Oh, Lucy to worry about too. And I'll get to that because that gets pretty heavy too. And also bearing in mind that we have a 2.5-year-old at home.
Yeah.
That is sort of wondering what's happening. He knows that we're pregnant. He knows that there's twins coming. He knows that his brothers are there. Like, Darcy's always been a pretty aware kid. And even at 2.5, like, he knew shit was going on. He knew that something was up. And I remember Lucy coming out. It was at night time. I remember Lucy coming out and she's like, I don't feel well. Something's wrong.
Yep.
And I just remember my heart like sinking. And we ended up going into the hospital, and Lucy got checked in, and, everything was kind of stable, right? So they're doing ultrasounds and they're checking. Not much has changed. And I ended up going home because I needed to go home and look after Darcy. And I remember waking up to a phone call from the nurses, being really calm and basically saying, just take your time coming in, because something's happened, and Lucy's okay, but we really need you to come in. But just drive slowly and come in. I remember walking into the hallway, and I was outside the hall, and I was told that Lucy had given birth to one of the boys. And I won't go into the detail of what happened because it is quite triggering. But Lucy had given birth to Zach by the time that I had got in there. And
Zach was the one that had the lower fluid.
Yeah. So Zach decided that, he wasn't gonna make it. So he was born, obviously didn't survive. And you just bear in mind that we're at 19 weeks and 5 days.
Which is brutal in itself.
It's really brutal in itself. And I'll get to why that's brutal in itself in a second. And this is probably some of the really tough things that, Lucy and I have kind of navigated over, particularly in that early time. That happened, and then Lucy's recovering, and but Lucy's okay at this time, and there's really great support from all the doctors and nurses, and again, at this point in time, everything else is fine.
Yeah.
With the other one, with Seb, there was still a chance that he could be okay.
And were they saying that most likely he'd be okay, or he's still at risk?
No, highly risk.
Okay.
Huge risk. Yeah. And you know what? Statistically, quite unlikely. But
you hold on to hope.
There's always been. The problem is when you give birth, right, you're obviously opening up a lot of, like, a pathway for germs and stuff to get in. So there's a much higher risk of infection during that time. So I spent the day with Luce. Obviously, it's pretty horrific. And, Lucy's parents were down, and my parents are here as well, helping look after Das. And, like, I remember going home, Tom, Julie's husband, was at mum and dad's place, and just the support around us, all along through the whole thing was really incredible. So I went home and Luce was still in the hospital because there's not much I could do. And I ended up getting a phone call at about 1:30 in the morning from
it's like 24 hours after almost.
Yeah, from Lucy saying, "Oh, I just want to let you know that my waters have just broken."
Yeah, okay.
And she said, "Look, there's no point coming in. Everything's really stable at the moment. There's nothing you can do, so stay home with Darcy for now and just come in the morning." So I did come in the morning and, just chatting with the midwife who was incredible. I can't remember her name, but she was unbelievable, unbelievable support. We actually made the decision. This was a lot easier for me being quite pragmatic about things and knowing where things are going to end. But we actually made the decision at that point after Lucy's waters had broken to induce.
Yeah.
Because it was not happening naturally.
Yeah. And at that point, were you still holding on to hope, or you knew, like I said, that was termination?
That was as soon as the waters broke, there's no chance. Like we're at 20 weeks.
Yeah. Geez, 6 weeks left.
So like I heard of some babies surviving at 23, 24.
Yeah.
But I knew then, probably sooner than Lucy, that was it.
Yeah.
I think the most horrific part of this is that, you see your wife who you love dearly going through labour, which it's fucking stressful for anyone who's got
Yeah, no, I'm super excited. Super pumped.
Labour is stressful, man. There's nothing you can do except be a punching bag or someone to support or whatever. Like,
we're watching a TV, I just did off track. There's a TV show called The Pit at the moment, and it's practically like 24 hours. Like it's fictitious that the last episode is on about childbirth, and like they were very graphic from that end. I was like, no chance I am down that end, Nicole.
I tell you what, I've been through all of the stuff, and it's fucking incredible.
Oh, the human body is insane.
Oh my goodness,
insane. I know that's a bit off track, but
no, that's okay.
Going so back to...
So Lucy has been induced and is in labour.
Yeah.
Right. So it actually comes on pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Right. So we also got to remember that her body this is not at the time where her body
wants to, it's kind of like wild.
To have a baby.
Why am I in labour?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we have labour, he's born, obviously doesn't survive.
Yeah.
Right. Because we expected that. Right.
Yeah.
And that's pretty fucking traumatic.
Yeah.
Right. And it was almost, I don't know, from my side, this kind of relief at that point in time that, okay, this is over. Now we move on.
Did you feel prepared because you were constantly talking about looking off past experiences to be better? I know it was only probably 24 hours before that you've had the experience. Did you feel more prepared because of that?
I think the fact that it was building up for 5 or 6 weeks, statistically the chances were quite low. So you're kind of preparing yourself for whatever, but you're still holding on for hope.
Yeah.
So just probably getting back to the point of when Lucy gave birth. Her there's 2 births that happen, Matt.
Yeah.
So there's birth and then there's birth of the placenta.
Yeah.
Right. Now, because Lucy her body wasn't ready for this.
Yeah.
Her uterus shut.
Oh.
And didn't give birth to the placenta.
Yeah.
Now, your placenta's an organ. It has blood pumping to it.
Yeah.
And, at that point in time, it's fine, right?
Yeah.
So I won't go into too much graphic detail of all the things that, they sort of try to do. But I remember looking at Luce and, all of a sudden she's sort of starting to look really sleepy and she's like white.
Yeah.
Right? So you do remember, like, blood's still pumping to the uterus, to the placenta.
That's now shut.
It's now shut. So essentially her uterus is filling up with blood. She's essentially bleeding to death.
Yeah.
And I called the midwife in and she's like, oh, okay, shit. And then out of nowhere, it was as if someone got a bucket, and this is quite graphic. Someone got a bucket and just threw a bucket of blood on the floor.
Yeah.
So Lucy hemorrhaged.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you've been in a hospital room before, but if you pull the phone out of the hook, it sets off an alarm.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why Lucy got to that point is because someone had actually gone into theatre before her with the same kind of thing to remove the placenta. It's not uncommon for this to happen.
Okay.
So Lucy had to wait.
Yep.
So we're like 10, 15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Or not, I don't know how long it was, but next thing I know, there's like 10 people in the room.
Yeah.
Right? There's blood all over the floor and I'm getting pushed to the side because there's doctors everywhere.
Yeah.
And then Lucy just gets taken away.
Yeah.
And I'm left in this room with the midwife and there's blood everywhere. I'm literally thinking to myself, I can't not go home with her.
And when doctors and nurses are usually really calm, and when you see panic on them, you know fucking shit's not right.
Do you know what? Everyone just, they go into their job, right?
Yeah.
So they go into their job mode and everyone's really quite calm, right?
Yeah.
So, but there are lots of people in there. And I do remember some people saying, it's all good, we've got her now, she's going to theatre, it's everything fine. And then I remember being taken out into the waiting room. And remember this is like 24 hours of pretty traumatic shit. And I remember having a chat with the midwife and, we're just trying to have small talk and whatever. And then I hear this like code white to the theatre, code white to the theatre. I remember seeing like a look on her face that wasn't great.
Yeah, so that's when you saw the panic.
And I said to her, what the fuck is going on? Don't lie to me. Tell me what's going on right now because no way I can go home without her.
Yeah.
And she's like, they're just asking for more blood. She's obviously needed a blood transfusion.
Yeah, okay.
That happened twice.
Yeah. And when you don't know about something and you want to know everything, it's very hard to be in a situation where you're out of control, where you're in a lifestyle where you're in so control of everything you do, and not having control sucks.
It sucks. And then, look, I ended up just pacing and remember this beautiful doctor came in, like beautiful person came in and she took me aside. She goes, everything's fine.
Yeah.
Lucy's fine. We had to give her a couple of blood transfusions, but she's fine. She's recovered. You can go and see her. And I just remember going in and seeing her and...
Was that just the most like relaxed you'd ever sort of felt?
It was a massive relief. Well, obviously then you've got that relief that your partner's fine, but then the reality just kicks in again too of like what you're facing.
So to go back, did you kind of feel like you forgot about the twins for a second?
I did.
Yeah, so you forgot like it was just a whole nother thing.
It's a whole other,
And that's okay as well.
Yeah. Totally right. You kind of go into like preservation mode, right?
Right.
You're just like, okay, so what can we control here? Can't control what happened with the twins. That's done now. We lost the twins within 24 hours of each other and one was 19 weeks and 5 days, one was 19 days and 6 days.
Yeah.
Technically, miscarriage.
Yeah.
Now, I will tell you right now that they were human beings.
Yeah.
Because I saw them. Lucy held them. I couldn't do it because I couldn't. And
that's okay.
I think about it now and Lucy did say, I think you might regret it. And I said, I don't think I will. And even to this day, I don't regret it. But I looked at them and they were human beings, perfect little human beings, 5 fingers, 5 toes, nose, eyes, whatever. And
that was enough for you.
It was enough for me. Now, we were really fortunate that we had the most amazing support network around us. And maybe I'll fast forward to a couple of things. As Luce was in hospital for a little bit. We had the most amazing pastoral care nurse. Now, I'm not a religious person, but man, she was awesome. And I still tell this story to this day when she explained grief to me. And if you imagine a bookshelf, and there's a book on there that says grief. And then as you move through life, the book is still there. Obviously, I'm quite emotional about it now still. But everything around it has been filled in with all these other things that make up your life.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it. I think it's important that, life is not linear. And, fast forward to Phoenix, who's the most incredible kid and is such a gift. And, I know that when he was born, I had the most amazing connection with him, probably more so because of the history of what had happened. And, fast forward now to where we sit right now, where we're actually pregnant with our 3rd child.
And it's a
girl. having a little girl, which I'm incredibly excited about. And this is all relevant. I'm bringing this up because I guess I just wanted to talk about how, if you imagine that bookshelf and that book of grief there, we've also got all the experiences we've had as a family. I've got all the support of all the people that were around me at the time. And massive shout out to the guys from Riverview Cafe. Like, they didn't have to do anything for me, except I did not pay for a thing for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
when I went in there.
How far? Like, it's such a small thing, and how it's like, yeah,
it's incredible. But you know, like the story about having a girl now is that I thought we were done. Like, we did IVF for Phoenix for a range of reasons, and we actually had embryos left over.
Yeah,
right. So I thought we were done. And Lucy, middle of last year, said, I feel that with Phoenix coming back, we've given one of the twins an opportunity to come back.
Yeah.
And we have 4 embryos, and I actually want to see if the other twin, she goes, I still feel him.
Yeah.
And I want to give him an opportunity to come back too. And I'm not saying how can you argue with that, because I think deep down inside, for me, getting pregnant with twins actually created space for 3 kids anyway. Like, I never thought I would, but I was content with 2, but it created space for 3. So the idea of having 3 wasn't wrong. It felt right. It feels so right now. It's going to be fucking chaos, but it's, feel right. But just getting back to the whole COVID thing, where you're saying that, the kind of world explodes, the world exploded. I tell you right now, COVID was nothing.
You're kind of prepared.
COVID was nothing compared to the shit that we went through the year before. Fucking bring it on, because we can handle this.
Yeah.
And, Lucy and I did a lot of a lot of talking, it took me a while to really, I guess, address it through a couple of different psychologists, and I feel I'm all right now. Lucy did an incredible amount of work with her therapist as well. But yeah, look, traumatic things happen in life. Fantastic things happen in life. And I think at the end of the day, that's just life.
So I've got one question. 20, 30 years from now, and your 3 children are looking at having children, and they listen to this, what do you want them to take away from this?
It's a great question. Life is very unpredictable.
Yeah.
And as much as I like to be in control of things, I think that unpredictability of life is probably also what makes it so beautiful. And I think if I think about Phoenix, and, his name is pretty relevant as well, a phoenix rising out of the ashes of a really shit situation. I think that you need to take a chance in life.
Yeah. But don't let it hold you back.
Don't let it hold you back, no.
Yeah. Hamish, thank you very much for sharing that. It's not often I'm left speechless, and you've shared parts of this story with me before. I think that for you to come from where you are, I didn't know you at that point, to where you are now, like, you've done an incredible amount of work that you should be super proud of. I don't really know your wife, I'm going to speak on behalf of her, but she's super proud of where you've come from to where you are now.
Yeah.
But your family and friends and everyone, I've got here support written down. I think people, you again created that support. It just didn't come because you were lucky. So there are avenues, I think, if people are triggered by this as well. Just again, there are support networks out there. Please don't be afraid to reach out to those people.
Yep.
I'm sure we'll probably touch on this a little bit more. I've got some stuff here now about questions about this in the future and kids and things like that, especially since you're about to have a third. I think we touched on that another time. But is there anything else you want to add?
Just one last thing, the strength of Lucy through this whole thing, I'll always be in awe of how she conducted herself through this whole thing, because it is so much different. Like, I was upset at the idea of, losing twins. She physically had them in her, gave birth to them, and was connected with them on a whole different level to what I was. And to see her be the person that she's now, and how she's navigated through that really terrible time is pretty incredible. So, yeah.
Haim, thank you for sharing.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you, buddy.